Welcome back. You have tuned in to All Thrive In, and today we're going to be diving deep into the rise and fall of BlackBerry. So what can we learn from this tech giant's journey from dominance to, near obscurity?
Yeah, it's a story that I think resonates far beyond just the tech world because
Yeah.
it really highlights the importance of adaptability, innovation,
Hmm.
and understanding the ever-changing needs of consumers.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The report that you shared starts by painting this picture of BlackBerry's dominance in the early 2000s. It was the device for professionals,
Hmm.
especially in government and corporate sectors. I mean, remember those physical keyboards? They were iconic.
Right, that tactile feel, the security features BlackBerry was synonymous with.
Yeah.
Productivity and reliability. It was the go-to choice for, anyone who needed to stay connected on the go.
But then came the iPhone in 2007, and the report dives into how BlackBerry failed to anticipate this seismic shift in consumer preferences towards touchscreens and apps.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that BlackBerry initially seemed to just dismiss the iPhone. They were so focused on their strengths, the security, the email efficiency, that physical keyboard, that they underestimated the appeal of this, completely new user experience.
And that brings us to, I think, a crucial point that the report kind of dives into. BlackBerry's delayed launch of a competitive app store. So Apple launched the App Store in 2008. BlackBerry World,
Hmm.
lagged behind, offering a limited selection
Mm.
and a less user-friendly interface.
Yeah, and it wasn't even just about the apps themselves, right? It was about this whole ecosystem that Apple was building around its devices. It was about entertainment, connectivity,
Yeah.
a seamless experience. And BlackBerry, despite its initial success, just didn't seem to grasp the magnitude of this change that was happening.
So the report suggests that this overconfidence in their existing technology really backfired. They were late to the touchscreen game, and their attempts at catching up were often clunky,
Hmm.
like the BlackBerry Storm, which had a touchscreen that, didn't exactly live up to the hype or money.
Yeah, the Storm is a great example of how even a company as successful as BlackBerry could stumble when, trying to play catch up. It really highlights the importance of not just adapting, but like anticipating where the market is going and innovating accordingly.
And the report goes on to dig deeper into the internal struggles of BlackBerry, particularly the dynamic between the co-CEOs, Mike Lazaridis and Jim Balsillie. And apparently their differing visions on how to respond to these market shifts created a lot of friction and really hampered their ability to make swift decisions.
Yeah, and this leadership dynamic raises a fascinating question. How do companies with shared leadership navigate major changes? Do multiple perspectives, lead to more innovative solutions? Or can it create roadblocks? When decisive action is needed, it's definitely something to ponder.
Yeah, it's almost like they were stuck in this tug of war,
Mhm.
trying to hold on to their core strengths while simultaneously trying to adapt to a rapidly changing landscape.
Exactly. And as the report shows, this internal struggle coincided with these really powerful external forces that BlackBerry just couldn't overcome. The rise of iOS and Android completely revolutionized the smartphone industry. It wasn't just about devices anymore, it was about platforms, about
The
ecosystems.
numbers in the report are truly staggering.
Yeah.
By 2013, BlackBerry's global market share had plummeted to less than 3%. I mean, to put that in perspective, they held a commanding 20% just a few years earlier in 2009.
Yeah, that's a dramatic fall from grace. And it
Yeah.
underscores a crucial point, right? No matter how dominant a company might seem, they're always vulnerable to disruption if they fail to adapt to, changing market dynamics and
Yeah.
consumer preferences.
Right, and the report doesn't let up. It also points to the emergence of new competitors,
Yeah.
like Samsung, Huawei, and Xiaomi. And these companies were offering these compelling features at competitive prices, further squeezing BlackBerry's market position.
It was like a perfect storm for BlackBerry, right? They were facing this changing market, a changing definition of what a smartphone should be. And they were facing fierce competition from companies that were more agile, more in tune with consumer trends.
And even the corporate world,
Yeah.
which was BlackBerry's stronghold, began to shift. Companies started embracing what they call bring-your-own-device policies, allowing employees to use their personal iPhones and Androids for work.
Yeah, and this was a huge blow for BlackBerry. It was like the foundation of their business was,
Yeah.
crumbling beneath them.
Exactly. So the report then kind of delves into BlackBerry's technological shortcomings. They were slow to adopt larger screens, advanced cameras, and seamless integration of third-party apps, all the things that consumers were clamoring for.
Yeah, it's fascinating how a company that was known for its innovation could become so out of touch with what consumers wanted.
Yeah, and the report uses the example of the BlackBerry Storm again,
Mm.
highlighting how its poor performance as a touchscreen phone further solidified the perception that BlackBerry was,
Yeah.
falling behind.
Yeah, the storm seems to be like a recurring symbol of BlackBerry's struggles. It was their attempt to play in the touchscreen arena, but it really backfired, highlighting their inability to compete on the same level as, Apple and the emerging Android ecosystem.
Yeah, it feels like they were trying to hold on to their past success while trying to adapt to the future. And the report makes it clear that's a recipe for disaster
Mhm.
in the fast-paced world of tech.
Absolutely. And the report emphasizes the lack of a strong app ecosystem as this critical weakness for BlackBerry. Developers flocked to iOS and Android, where they could reach a wider audience. And BlackBerry users were left with this limited selection of apps, which further diminished the appeal of their devices.
And this brings us to their attempt at a major comeback with BlackBerry 10 in 2013. And the report notes that while BB10 had some innovative features, it still lacked compatibility with those popular Android apps, which really hindered its adoption by both developers and consumers.
Yeah, BlackBerry 10 was like their last stand. They were trying to create this platform that could compete with iOS and Android. But it was too little, too late. The market had already moved on.
Yeah, so the report then dives into the financial fallout of all these missteps, declining sales, shrinking market share. It all added up to massive revenue losses
Yeah.
and this plummeting stock price.
Yeah, the financial side of this story is a stark reminder of how quickly things can change in the business world.
Yeah.
1 minute you're on top, the next you're struggling to stay afloat.
Right, from a high of over $140 per share in 2008, BlackBerry stock plummeted to single digits by 2013. Pretty dramatic fall from grace.
Yeah, and the report doesn't shy away from discussing BlackBerry's marketing struggles as well. They had difficulty connecting with, a wider consumer audience beyond their core business users. Their brand, which was once synonymous with innovation and productivity, became increasingly associated with outdated technology.
It's almost like their image became frozen in time, while the rest of the world moved on.
Exactly. They were stuck in this perception trap. And no matter how much they tried to innovate, they couldn't shake off that image of being behind the times.
So then the report shifts gears a bit to explore the impact of global events on BlackBerry. And it's interesting how certain events, like the 9/11 attacks, initially boosted their image due to their network reliability during the crisis.
That's right. BlackBerry devices were seen as these essential tools for communication when other networks were down. And it really solidified their reputation for reliability and security, which was a major asset at the time.
But then, in 2011, a global service outage that lasted for days and affected millions of users across 5 continents severely damaged BlackBerry's reputation.
Yeah. It's almost ironic how an event that initially boosted their image for reliability ended up having the opposite effect just a few years later. It speaks to the fragility of reputation in this, hyper-connected world.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, did that outage play a role in accelerating their decline? Did it make consumers and businesses question their reliability, just as the competition was heating up?
It's certainly a possibility, and the report points out another significant event, the leadership change in 2013. When co-founders Mike Lazaridis and Jim Balsillie stepped down.
This marked a real turning point for the company as they grappled with their declining market share and financial losses. Seems like the end of an era.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even the most successful companies are shaped by the people who lead them. And when those leaders depart, it can have a profound impact on the company's direction and its ability to adapt to change.
Wow, it's a lot to process. BlackBerry's journey is more than just a tech story. It's a tale of ambition, innovation, missteps, and ultimately, a fight for survival in a rapidly changing world.
And while their fall from grace is undeniable, I think there's still a lot to unpack about their attempts at revival and the lessons we can learn from their experience.
Yeah, let's dive into that next. We'll explore BlackBerry's shift towards software security and IoT solutions and see what insights we can glean from their ongoing journey.
So picking up where we left off, the report details BlackBerry's attempts to revive its fortunes, and they partnered with TCL to manufacture devices under the BlackBerry brand, aiming for, a comeback in the hardware market.
Yeah, it was an interesting move. These phones, like the BlackBerry Key 1 and Key 2, tried to blend that classic physical keyboard with a modern Android operating system.
It seemed like a smart strategy, trying to appeal to both nostalgia and the need for a more tactile typing experience in a world dominated by touchscreens.
But as the report points out, these phones failed to gain significant traction. They were overshadowed by the sleek designs and advanced features of competitors like Apple and Samsung.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we discussed earlier about BlackBerry's struggle to shake off that outdated image. Even though they were running Android, they were still perceived as being behind the curve.
Right. It was like they were trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. They were trying to recapture their past glory instead of forging a new path.
And that brings us to their strategic shift towards software security and Internet of Things solutions. This move, as the report suggests, has been more successful in stabilizing the company.
So they basically pivoted away from being a device manufacturer and embraced their strengths in security and enterprise software. It's almost like they went back to their roots.
Exactly. And the report highlights how this shift has allowed BlackBerry to leverage its expertise in areas like cybersecurity and data encryption to provide solutions for businesses and governments.
It's interesting how they took what was once a weakness, their lack of a strong consumer-facing brand, and turned it into a strength by focusing on a niche market where security and reliability are paramount.
It's a lesson in adaptability. They recognized that they couldn't compete head-on with the likes of Apple and Google in the consumer market, so they pivoted to an area where they had a competitive advantage.
So the report seems to suggest that while these moves haven't led to a resurgence in the smartphone market, they have allowed BlackBerry to carve out a new space for themselves in the tech world.
It's a testament to their resilience and their ability to reinvent themselves. They haven't given up. They've evolved.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. BlackBerry's story is a roller coaster of success, missteps, and reinvention. But what does it all mean? What can we, the listeners, learn from their journey?
Well, the report emphasizes three crucial takeaways, and I think they're worth repeating here. First, adaptability and innovation are absolutely essential in a rapidly changing market.
Yeah, that's something we've seen time and time again throughout this deep dive. BlackBerry's failure to adapt quickly enough to the rise of touchscreens apps and the changing consumer landscape ultimately led to their decline.
The second takeaway is the need for a consumer-centric approach rather than clinging to a niche market. BlackBerry's initial focus on business and government users was a strength in the early days, but it became a liability as the smartphone market exploded and consumer preferences shifted.
They were so focused on what had made them successful in the past that they missed the bigger picture. They didn't fully embrace the consumer market until it was too late.
And the third takeaway, which we've touched on throughout this discussion, is the significance of a robust app ecosystem for success in the smartphone world. BlackBerry's failure to create a thriving app environment comparable to iOS and Android significantly hindered their ability to compete.
Yeah, it's almost like they underestimated the power of apps to transform the way people use their phones. It wasn't just about making calls and sending emails anymore. It was about entertainment, social media, and a whole universe of possibilities.
Exactly, and the report makes it clear that these lessons are applicable not just in the tech world, but in any industry undergoing rapid transformation.
It's a reminder that we can't afford to be complacent regardless of what field we're in. We need to be adaptable, innovative, and constantly seeking ways to meet the evolving needs of our customers.
So as you reflect on BlackBerry's journey, think about how these lessons might apply to your own work, your own business, even your own life. Are you embracing change? Are you anticipating shifts in your industry? Are you truly listening to your customers?
These are powerful questions, and BlackBerry's story provides a valuable framework for thinking about them.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that BlackBerry, despite its struggles, hasn't given up. They've pivoted, they've adapted. They're still fighting to remain relevant in a constantly evolving tech landscape.
That's an important point. Their journey is a reminder that even in the face of setbacks, there's always room for reinvention, for finding new paths to success.
Absolutely. And while we can learn from their missteps, we can also draw inspiration from their resilience and their willingness to embrace change.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's shift our focus to you, the listener. We've explored the rise and fall of BlackBerry, but what does this story mean for you personally?
What resonates with you most? What lessons will you take away from this deep dive?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let's continue the conversation. We spent this deep dive exploring the captivating, and let's be honest, somewhat cautionary tale of BlackBerry. From their initial dominance to their struggles to adapt, and their eventual shift towards software and security. It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it really highlights how even tech giants, those who seem untouchable at their peak, can be vulnerable to disruption if they fail to stay ahead of the curve.
Right. And, as we've been discussing, BlackBerry's story isn't just a tech history lesson. It holds these valuable lessons for anyone, in any field, who's navigating a rapidly changing landscape.
Absolutely. Think about those core themes that have emerged, right? The need for adaptability, the importance of a consumer-centric approach, the power of a robust ecosystem. These are relevant whether you're running a tech company, a small business, or even just managing your own career.
So let's bring it back to you, the listener. Why should you care about the fall of BlackBerry?
Because it's a reminder that what worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. We can't afford to rest on our laurels, to assume that past success guarantees future success.
It's about being aware of the forces that are shaping your industry, your market, your world. It's about anticipating those shifts, even when they seem to challenge the very core of what you do.
And it's about being willing to adapt, to evolve, to let go of what's no longer working, and embrace new approaches.
And the report really drives home the point that innovation isn't this, one-time event. It's an ongoing process. It's a mindset. It's about constantly seeking ways to improve, to do things better, to meet the evolving needs of your customers or your audience.
Yeah, BlackBerry's story is a reminder that even giants can stumble. But it also offers hope. It shows that even in the face of decline, there's always this possibility of reinvention, of finding new paths to success, of adapting to a changing world.
Their shift towards software and security, while not a return to their former glory, demonstrates their resilience. They recognize that they couldn't win the smartphone battle anymore, so they leveraged their strengths in other areas.
It's a powerful lesson in recognizing your strengths, acknowledging your weaknesses, and being willing to pivot when necessary.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave you with this final thought. What are you doing to stay ahead of the curve? What steps are you taking to ensure that you're not, clinging to outdated methods or strategies?
What can you learn from BlackBerry's journey, both their successes and their missteps, to thrive in an ever-changing world?
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the rise and fall of BlackBerry. It's a story that offers valuable lessons for all of us, regardless of our industry or our field. Remember to embrace adaptability, stay focused on your customers, and never stop innovating. Thank you for watching. If you're still here, it means you enjoyed it. Please hit the like button, share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe and follow.
You've been listening to All Thrive In,